business is about psychology. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. To come in a little closer here, we'll talk a little bit about psychology because I think, and I'm going to use books as a great example of this because that's where you can really get down deep when it comes to the psychology of business. Because what is business other than you offering something in exchange for money in most cases and trying to convince the other person that they need what you've got more than they need the money that's in their pocket or the potential money that they can have in their pocket. And so that's psychology. That's behavioral psychology for the most part. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing one-on-one sales or whether you're talking widespread marketing or you're talking long-term PR. It's all the same thing. It's all about human psychology because our brains don't work. They work predictably, but not until you look back far enough and you step far enough away, then you can see the predictability of human beings. We're extremely predictable, but we're predictable in how unpredictable we are. We're predictable in how non-logical we are and how emotional we are. That's where our predictability comes in. And people don't talk about it enough in overall society and in business. You have to understand that at some point, or you have to have someone on your team that understands that. Otherwise, you're always going to be shooting in the wrong place and offering stuff that people just don't want. And for me, that all starts out in the one-on-one relationship. So they say even about marketing, that what marketing is it's salesmanship in print, so to speak. It's salesmanship in terms of a one-on-one relationship, except stretched out to the masses, okay, whether that be print or video or audio or what have you. So I like going back to some of the classics. This is one of my favorite. I'm going to use books as an example because these books kind of hit on a lot of these major issues, and these are all excellent books for this, okay. This one talks about selling. It's How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettger. Okay. Really good book. I've talked about this one in the past. You can see mine is, I don't know if you can see there, it's yellowed and drawn in and highlighted and everything. I can go back at any time and flip to a random page and read something and go, oh my gosh, I forgot how good this book is. And every time I come back to it, I'm going, wow, so much wisdom in such a simple title. And you think it's just about sales. It's not about sales. It's about humans. This is about how to communicate with other human beings. I don't care whether you're selling anything or not. This book should be required reading for everybody. Honestly, you should read it at least once and look at how it affects your life, because no matter what you're doing, you need to be able to communicate with other people if you want a better life. Now, if you're in business, that is what you're in. And I don't care. I know you think that you are in the window tinting business or that you are in the dog food business. You're in the people business. You're in the communication business. And all business comes back to that. And someone on your team needs to understand humans. This is a good start. Books like this that have kind of a one-on-one. There are ones that deal in very broad subjects that are also psychological related. This is one specifically. It's a psychological term, triggers. This is triggers. It's the classic by Joe Sugarman. 30 sales tools you can use to control the mind of your prospect to motivate, influence, and persuade. Whenever you see stuff about controlling the mind, in most cases, if you're talking about good marketers and so forth, it's a tongue-in-cheek concept. And they're playing to you, they're selling to you while they're also talking about what they're trying to do. So while they're saying they want to control your mind, they're enticing you to be interested in this because it controls the mind. They're not necessarily talking about controlling minds. Now, a lot of this stuff, it could be used for good or it could be used for evil, but don't get thrown off by a title. I know a lot of you would. This is an excellent book and very simple. He uses stories to talk about each of these very simple psychological triggers, and these are the reason why I put this right after the other one is because these ideas can be used in direct sales, and he talks about direct sale situations that he was in as a salesperson, but he's also somebody that transitioned into the marketing era and has done extremely well for himself and is considered one of the sharpest people out there. And one of the reasons is this darn book here. This is an excellent book. Another book I talk about all the time, and I know you're probably sick of hearing about it if you watch very often, Breakthrough Advertising. So this is a person that's talking about sales in print. This is Eugene Schwartz, and he goes into depth on, really not in terms of technique, in terms of writing, but that's what he's from. He's you guys see an old typewriter on here. He's an old writer, or was an old writer. And when he wrote this, he's talking about the writing process, but he's talking about it in a sense of how people think and the lies we tell ourselves versus the lies that are true underneath those lies. The truth that is true underneath those lies. Scary book, very deep, takes a lot of rereading. I don't know anyone that's read this that would not want to read it again little by little, because it's such a thick concept book. It's very, very heavy. Another book that's a classic, and I don't have my copy here. I've got another Robert Cialdini book, but Robert Cialdini's Influence is a classic book dealing in psychology. Okay, a lot of the ideas have been spread out so often that people miss the original purpose, and so it's good to go back to that book because other people have taken these ideas and ran with them and created courses and everything just out of one chapter that he created. It was such an awesome book. But Influence is very good because it very much has to do with the manipulation that happens through marketing, through everything else, and he gives names to these concepts. Not that you would want to use it for manipulation, but you at least need to know how people are manipulating you, and you need to know the structure of the mind that allows for these things to occur so that you communicate properly with people. And the final one is also an extremely scary book. This is The Father of Spin. And this is Larry Tye's classic all about Edward Bernays. And if you haven't heard of Edward Bernays, well, you haven't lived. You've got to go check this book out. Or look up anything on Edward Bernays. Brilliant marketer, the father of PR, basically came up with the concept of public relations and made it popular, made millions of dollars back in the day, and changed lives way far into the future. So many of the things we do today that don't necessarily have a logical reason for doing them, we do them because Edward Bernays programmed us long ago in the past. Very amazing book. I've also talked about him quite a bit too. Anything you can find about Edward Bernays is interesting, and he is someone who tied it directly to psychology. So his uncle or cousin or whatever was Sigmund Freud, and he used to use that as kind of credit to give himself credit, but he is actually somebody that understood the psychology of people and understood how to get around that to do what he needed to do, whether he was dealing in sales and marketing or whether he was consulting with politicians. So those are just books to kind of wrap around, and we're talking about psychology here on a regular basis anyways. Don't discount the human mind. That's where everything happens. So between last night's video on mathematics, business is about mathematics and psychology, and you can't get around those two things. They're part of what we do because it's all about communication. It's all about counting the money. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll be back tomorrow. Go check out my book, 9 Ways to Amazon Proof Your Business. Get a free copy at amazonproofbook.com. And like I said, we'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, get out there and just let the magic happen.